They were high school sweethearts with everything going for them.
He's this handsome teenager, and she's gorgeous.
Both of them were very attractive, very well liked.
But their lives change forever in the blink of an eye.
The beautiful young girl vanishes into thin air.
Did somebody snatch her? Did she run away? Is she rebelling against something?
There's lots of rumors going around.
The search for the missing teen unites her hometown.
Searches started and hundreds of people turned out.
But a horrifying discovery will send shockwaves through the community.
How could someone take her and just throw her away like she was a piece of trash?
What kind of person would do such a thing?
Lord, thank you.
March 12, 2014. It's a quiet Wednesday afternoon in Hope Mills, North Carolina, a thriving suburb just south of Fayetteville.
The town has really grown, a lot of new development, commercial and residential.
Despite the growth, there are parts of Hope Mills that retain their idyllic southern charm, places like Rockfish Creek.
The creek area is right in between the school and our neighborhood.
After school, there'd be a lot of young people down at the creek, socializing, swimming, that sort of thing.
But this warm spring afternoon, the creek's not crowded with teenagers. It's crawling with local law enforcement.
Danielle!
Searching for 15-year-old Danielle Locklear.
Danielle!
Danielle, who lives with her grandparents, disappeared the previous evening.
Hey, where you going?
I just have to take this book back to Embers.
Well, all right. Be careful.
Okay, I will. I'll be right back.
But Danielle never returned.
My husband said I got in the car and I drove around to see if I seen her anywhere. I didn't see her anywhere. And at that moment, it's like I had a sinking feeling because I knew that wasn't right.
Her grandfather did report her missing to law enforcement.
Danielle!
Now, less than 24 hours later, Hope Mills police are scouring the woods behind her home in hopes of finding the missing teen.
The officers went down and searched the creek area. We called our K-9. He ran a search.
While there's no sign of the missing teen, there's disturbing evidence that suggests she may be in trouble.
Hey!
It's a message scrawled in the mud along the creek.
Almost like you would as a young child with a stick or something.
Real big, very readable. I was kind of taken back.
The message was a single, desperate word: help.
For 15-year-old Danielle Locklear, Hope Mills was home away from home.
Danielle had a lot of family here. Her mother was living in the Myrtle Beach area, and she had spent some time there.
Off and on, she would live with, us, with my mom.
It was a change of pace. They lived at the beach most of her young life. She got to where she wanted to see something different. She wanted to expand. So coming down to stay with me, she knew she'd get to see more.
In the fall of 2013, Danielle moved into her grandparents' home in Hope Mills and enrolled at Southview High School.
She was excited about changing schools, and she was happy. She's happy with the transition. Every day she came home, she had a new friend, and they were just all clicked up. They all loved Danielle.
Danielle was also very involved in her church's youth center.
She would just do little art projects with them, and all of the kids, they adored her.
They weren't the only ones who flocked to Danielle, though. The pretty 15-year-old soon caught the eye of 17-year-old jichael Malloy.
To us, he was family. We all grew up in the church together. And so I just remember seeing him as a little kid. Then he pops up and he's this handsome teenager.
He would go down to the youth center when she was down there.
He was just kind of like hanging around Danielle. And then she was just looking, I could see little eyes looking at each other and everything.
A star soccer player, jichael was quite a catch for the incoming freshman.
He was popular. He was one of the preppy kids. He was super goal-oriented.
He had a promising future. He was interested in going into the United States Marines. He was doing well as a young person here in Cumberland County.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, you think you'll be able to make it to the game tonight?
Yes, my grandma said that she is going to take me soon.
Perfect. Well, I'll see you then.
Danielle and Jichael soon became an item with her family's blessing.
They're all giving him the stamp of approval because he goes to the same church.
Danielle's family really embraced Jichael. He kind of became one of the family, going to dinner with them, socializing with them, church activities with them.
I would take her to the movies and take her to the fairground, she and Jichael. She was happy. She was very content.
They were kind of the all-American high school couple. Lots of friends involved in lots of activities.
She's blossoming into this beautiful young woman.
But on March 11th, 2014, Danielle's promising future seems to be in jeopardy.
Danielle told her grandfather that she was going to take a book back to a friend's house in the same neighborhood.
But she never returned, and Danielle's grandfather is worried. So he calls his wife, who's on a trip to Atlanta with their daughter.
The news sends Danielle's grandmother and aunt into a panic.
We're speeding back to Hope Mills, and I'm like, Dad, you have to call the police.
As day breaks the following morning, officers with the Hope Mills Police Department form a search party across the neighborhood.
When that report's filed, patrol went down to the creek area.
Hey! They're searching by the water, and they find the word help scratched into the mud.
At this point, we didn't know whether help scratched in the ground had anything to do with Danielle's disappearance.
But when Danielle's grandmother and aunt join the search, they spot something else.
Oh my God! I look down and I can see her night sock. Just one night sock.
She recognized that sock because she had bought it for Danielle. Was a real fleecy, fluffy, indoor, walk around the house kind of sock.
They were the socks she usually wore to bed, and probably the same socks she'd been wearing when she left the house at 9:45 the night before.
It was a very concerning clue because we thought that it may be a possibility that somehow she had met with foul play.
Danielle Locklear was a bright, bubbly 15-year-old.
She never really had a rebellious streak or anything like that. Like, Danielle just always had this innocent thing about her.
She was super positive. She really, really enjoyed life.
Danielle!
But on March 12th, 2014, Danielle's sudden disappearance has left her family and the authorities in Hope Mills, North Carolina, desperate to find her.
I blew her phone up. Like, I kept calling her and I was leaving voice messages like, Danielle, you need to answer the phone. You need to call me back. Where are you at?
Danielle was very connected to her family, to her friends, and constantly communicating with them. For her to just vanish into thin air and not be communicating with anyone was very unusual.
Even more alarming are the ominous clues a search party has just found along the banks of the creek behind her home.
The word help had been written into the dirt there around the creek.
Additional clues by the waterfront suggest Danielle had been there recently.
Her sock was laying right there at the very end of the trail to the creek. And it was balled up and it had straw in it. And I thought that was strange.
We could not tell for sure that if she was wearing that sock that evening, but we knew it was hers.
As darkness sets in, police call off the search for the night and open a formal missing persons investigation.
First things first, we get the child entered into NCIC. It's a National Crime Information Center. We also contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and I began canvassing houses that are direct neighbors of Miss Locklear, see if anybody had camera systems. Anybody might have been on her front porch smoking a cigarette, walking their dog, heard a noise and looked out their window, might have seen her. Anything at all.
Next, detectives sit down with Danielle's family.
Thank you so much for coming in. We know you've been through a lot. We just have a few more questions that we need to ask. Was your granddaughter getting into any kind of trouble? Anything that we should be aware of?
She was never in any trouble.
But she did just break up with her boyfriend.
Jichael was older. He was 17 years old, finishing up with school and hoping to go into the Marines. And Danielle was still young, had many years to go there at Southview High School. Because of that, there was an on and off nature to their relationship.
And when did this go down?
Around February, I would say.
But according to Danielle's family, after a few days of tears, it appeared that she had bounced back.
It didn't seem like it really fazed her. She seemed like she was okay.
Still, Danielle's grandmother says she can't shake the feeling that something was off with Danielle the night she left for Atlanta.
We was talking, and it's almost like I could tell that she was probably agitated about something.
Have any of y'all been in touch with jichael?
No. But I do have his phone number. If you want to, I could call him.
Please.
I'm like, jichael, this is Chena. Have you heard from Danielle? She's been missing since last night. And he goes, oh, no. We broke up. I haven't talked to her.
But what jichael says next sends chills down Chena's spine.
He was saying that he felt like maybe she ran away.
He said that she was considering or threatening to harm herself or to kill herself at some previous time in their relationship.
He says that Danielle had threatened to drown herself.
The news comes as a shock to Danielle's family.
Her family knew nothing of this, nothing of the drama going on, nothing of the threats.
But despite the family's surprise, detectives can't discount the possibility jichael may be right.
We're looking for any kind of evidence that would suggest that this kid might have run away. She's unhappy. She was putting on a show for everybody about being this happy-go-lucky girl.
That evening, detectives head to the neighbor's house where Danielle was supposedly going the night she disappeared.
She told her grandfather she was going to a friend's home named Amber Cook.
Amber Cook was a minor, so her parents had to be present for questioning.
I just have a few questions for you, Amber.
Okay.
On the day that Danielle went missing, she was coming over to return a book.
First I've heard of it.
You had no idea she was coming over.
No.
Though Amber admits she had seen Danielle earlier that day, and nothing about her behavior suggested she was contemplating suicide or running away.
She said, look, she was fine that day. She was happy, outgoing.
We even skipped school and went down to the creek.
You and Danielle?
Yeah. Us and a couple of guys. Here, let me show you.
She actually had photographs of her that day down at the creek.
It looked like she had been swimming. She had on swimming shorts, and her hair was pulled up in a bun, and it was curly.
So we knew what she was wearing as of that afternoon.
And we figured that it was a good chance she'd probably still be in that shirt.
That's not the only information that Amber is able to provide detectives, though.
These guys at the creek, who were they?
But did any of them have reason to hurt Danielle?
No, they were cool. Well, all except Aaron.
What about Aaron?
She indicated that he was a troublemaker and that he had made some advances towards young Locklear. She turned him down.
Maybe that prompted Aaron to hold a grudge.
The next morning, detectives ask 17-year-old Aaron and his mother to come down to the station for questioning.
He said he wasn't even at the creek that day, which we knew was a lie. Several people put him there.
You were there, Aaron. Amber has pictures.
Okay, I was there, but I didn't do anything to her. You can ask my mom and dad.
He had a very good alibi. He had left the creek at approximately 3 o'clock or so, which is about the same time Danielle left. He had gone to sports practice. After practice, he went home. He had dinner with his family. He actually went to a movie with his family that evening.
Whatever happened to her happened during the evening hours, and during the evening hours, we could account for his whereabouts.
Okay, you're free to go.
With Aaron ruled out as a possible suspect, detectives pull Danielle's cell phone records.
Law enforcement loves cell phones. In the last 10 years, cell phones have gotten GPS chips put into them, which tell exactly where you are.
But when detectives get the data from Danielle's phone provider, it raises a frightening new possibility.
She left her grandfather's at 9:45 p.m. and the last transmission from her phone was at 10:40 p.m. that same evening, and that the last GPS coordinate was near I-95.
We immediately had concerns. Look how fast it got from her neighborhood to I-95. It told us she wasn't walking.
We were concerned that perhaps she had been kidnapped.
March 13th, 2014. It has now been more than 24 hours since 15-year-old Danielle Locklear disappeared from her grandparents' home in Hope Mills, North Carolina.
It really started to set in, like, maybe something really is wrong. When that feeling sets in, it's indescribable.
My mind was going everywhere because I didn't know what had happened to her, where she was.
But thanks to Danielle's cell phone records, detectives now have a better idea of the general direction Danielle was headed the night she disappeared.
Her cell phone, if you follow the GPS coordinates, had left the area of her home there in Hope Mills and headed north on I-95, and the last transmission was 15 or 20 minutes up I-95.
Interstate 95 is the main highway between Florida and New York, so it is heavily traveled.
We get alerts all the time of people being kidnapped down south from Florida to up north in New York. The theory of, did somebody come off 95, seen this young lady walking at night, grab her, and get out of town, was definitely a concern.
The fact that the last signal from Danielle's phone is more than 24 hours old and appeared to be heading north on the interstate raises another chilling possibility for detectives.
She could be out of state.
With Danielle's possible whereabouts becoming an ever-widening circle, detectives in Hope Mills call for backup.
When a girl goes missing in a situation like this, various law enforcement agencies come together.
Our State Bureau of Investigation became involved, the FBI became involved.
It's less common for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to get involved unless they think that the crime rises to a federal level or if it's going to be an interstate type of thing.
They sent people from Quantico. They call their BAH people, their behavior analyst people, profilers. Was she talking to a predator on the computer? She's very active on electronic devices. It goes in a circle.
There was a command center set up at the Hope Mills Recreational Center, and that was close to Danielle's home. It's close to the creek, so it was close to what we knew about Danielle's whereabouts and actions before she went missing.
Law enforcement aren't the only ones flocking to Hope Mills, though.
The news crew kept coming to the house, and all the different news stations was camped out somewhere right there.
It's a trying time for Danielle's family, especially her mother, who's made the journey from Myrtle Beach back to Hope Mills.
My sister, she was just like any mother would be. She lost it. She really did. She didn't know what to think. Always worrying, sitting by the door. Literally. She sat by the door. She sat on the porch every single day.
All we could do, we could just hold each other real tight. And we just cried and cried and cried because we didn't know what to do. We were afraid to go out the house. And it was like that for a long time.
While Danielle's family bands together, the search for the missing teen intensifies.
There were searches. Volunteers turned out.
Probably 300 people. I mean, it was massive. Nobody wanted to be that one to overlook that one crucial piece of evidence, so they spared no expense.
Leaving no stone unturned, detectives sit down with Danielle's ex-boyfriend, Jichael Malloy, on March 15th.
We wanted to talk to him, see when last time he talked to her, heard from her, corresponded with her, anything like that.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with us.
No problem. Anything I could do to help.
His family was very cooperative and allowed him to speak to detectives.
He definitely was eager to want to find her. Seemed like he was down to help.
Although he has little to offer the detectives.
When was the last time you saw Danielle?
It's been a couple of weeks. We broke up.
The nature of high school relationships sometimes is on and off again. And Danielle and Jichael were no different. It was on and off again. They would break up, get back together.
And how did she feel about that?
She's pretty upset.
Jichael was very forthcoming and said Danielle was really wanting to hold on to the, relationship that they had.
She kept texting me, wanting to get back together.
What did you do?
At some point, he blocks her.
He got tired of her, sending him messages.
I just hope she didn't do anything crazy.
Though Jichael seems genuine, detectives can't help but wonder if he's telling the truth.
So where were you Tuesday night, the night that she went missing?
I was home, studying with my friend Dominic.
According to Jichael, his friend Dominic Locke had spent the night at his house too.
The two of them were going to study for some standardized testing the next day.
When detectives follow up with Jichael's mother, his story checks out.
His mother was there, his younger cousin was there at the home, and so there were individuals that could put him at his home that evening, that Tuesday, March 11th, going into the early morning hours of Wednesday, March 12th.
After talking to Jichael's mom, detectives head to Southview High.
They went to school and started interviewing her friends about what was going on with her near the time she went missing.
These are minors they're dealing with, so parents had to be notified for them to get permission to even talk to anyone.
It's a frustrating day for detectives.
Chasing them kids around and getting them to sit down with us and tell us what they heard, just, man, that slowed us down.
There was so many stories going around. Everybody was saying different things.
So basically, there was these kids in drama, right? And then there's Jessica, who was talking about Chad.
And then my friend Becca told me that her little brother was also spreading rumors, so.
The rumor mill started, and you talk to the kid, and he tells you heard it from so-and-so, so now you gotta go find so-and-so, and he heard it from so-and-so. Now you gotta go, and you gotta chase this rumor through about 30 people before you get to a source who says, that's just what I heard, and I don't remember who I heard that from, or I did say that, but that's just what I heard.
Despite all the rumors swirling around Danielle's disappearance, there's one story that remains constant.
Apparently, Jichael's friend Dominic and Danielle were intensely jealous of one another.
What's up, Jichael?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Jichael was Dominic's best friend. They rode to school together a lot. They spent a lot of time together.
Perhaps too much time for some people.
Hey, look, man, we about to go play 21. You want to come?
No, actually, he's gonna stay here. We're studying.
As proof, several of Danielle's friends point detectives towards a social media post Danielle made shortly before her breakup with Jichael.
In it, she said she felt unloved because some people were too busy with their other friends to pay attention to their girlfriend.
Detectives are wondering, how deep does this rivalry go?
Is this a teenage drama or a catalyst for revenge?
After speaking with Danielle Locklear's classmates at Southview High, detectives have uncovered evidence of a rivalry between the missing teen and her ex-boyfriend's best friend, Dominic Locke.
It doesn't appear to be a love triangle, but Dominic and Jichael's romance does appear to have caused some jealousy between Danielle and Dominic.
When detectives sit down with Dominic, he doesn't deny the rumors.
So thank you for agreeing to speak with us, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
We understand that there was some jealousy between Danielle and you and your relationship with Jichael.
I mean, I'll admit, we never really got along. But her and Jichael are over, so I don't even see her anymore.
Dominic says he has no idea what could have happened to Danielle.
So where were you on the night of the 11th?
At Jichael's.
All night?
All night. We were studying for a test and then went to school that next day.
He said around 8 o'clock, he drove to Jichael's home. The two of them are preparing for a test the next day. He spent the night over there, and they went to school the next morning.
Dominic's story lines up with what Jichael and Jichael's mother have already told detectives.
But while Dominic appears to be a dead end, detectives have no shortage of new leads to follow, thanks to news coverage of Danielle's disappearance.
When it hit national news, of course, you're getting phone calls from everybody.
Tips were coming in hundreds, and then we quickly got into the thousands. People were calling saying they seen her, telling us where we should go look. Didn't stop day and night for a solid week. I mean, it was just constant.
We had reports that Danielle had been seen out of state at a Walmart or at a restaurant, and somebody had seen somebody and they just knew it was Danielle.
The flood of tips gives Danielle's family much needed hope.
Maybe she did run away because there's multiple accounts of people saying that they seen her somewhere.
Detectives consider most of the tips to be long shots, but not all.
A girl in Raleigh applied for a job at a hotel. Her name was Danielle Locklear. Looked like her, enough that people called.
Law enforcement scrambles to follow up on the sighting.
FBI had the ability to get her address, drive out to her house.
It was someone who looked a lot like Danielle, but it was not Danielle.
A tip came in out of Virginia in a Waffle House. It came in so fast that FBI even got to that Waffle House while she was still eating.
The girl denied being Danielle, but looked so identical to the missing teen that the feds didn't take her word for it.
They had to take a picture and send it to us to show her mom, and it wasn't her, but it looked like her.
As the false sightings pile up, what had been hope for Danielle's family slowly gives way to the gnawing fear that they may never see her again.
I felt that she would have come home if she could have. Because at that point, we had been on the news and we kind of made our pleas and stuff, you know.
It was horrible. It was horrible. I was so afraid what they were going to tell me. It was just one downfall after the other.
It went on for a month, you know, and that was one hell of a month. Sheer hell.
You don't know if someone kidnapped her, if she's being held hostage somewhere, if she's dead.
As the family's anxiety begins to mount, the town of Hope Mills does everything they can to buoy their spirits.
The community came out and supported Danielle's family. They had candlelight vigils.
They launched 1,000 balloons on March 29th to basically pledge their support for Danielle and for her safe return.
Danielle's fellow students turn out in force at every event.
They all pretty much know each other, even with 2,200 students. They know each other. They were strong for each other. They loved her. It was just blatantly obvious.
During this time, it also becomes obvious that despite their breakup, Danielle's ex-boyfriend Jichael still cares for her and her family.
He was there with us at the search, the balloon release, coming by my house, bringing food.
Despite the love and support of everyone in Hope Mills, law enforcement is growing increasingly frustrated at the lack of progress in the case.
The Hope Mills police chief said that they'd received more than 500 tips and leads, but none of them had panned out.
Then, on the evening of April 2nd, another lead comes in, the one everyone has been dreading.
Hey, dispatch, this is 113. I need some assistance.
Okay.
I'm down here at Hollow Bridge Road.
He took an alternate route. He said he usually don't go that route too often, but he went that route that day.
But as he passed the South River, he stopped.
Out the corner of his eye, he saw something in the river that caught his attention.
There's something that's floating in the river down below.
Is there a deputy that's close by with a pair of binoculars so I can make sure there's not a body in the water?
It, in fact, was a body.
As the sun sets, the rescue team descends upon the bridge.
It was quite a while before they were able to move the body.
A center block had been tied around the waist of the body, and a center block had been tied around the feet of the body using yellow rope.
Due to the level of decomposition, the rescue team quickly bags the body to contain as much evidence as possible.
The body was in a stage of decomp that was pretty severe. Couldn't tell any really distinguishing facial features.
It's grim work, but the rescue squad eventually brings the body to shore.
What they found was a body that appeared to have been there a while, probably a matter of weeks.
However, despite decomposition, one thing is sadly obvious to everyone present.
The body definitely appeared to be a female.
It will take DNA testing to make a positive identification, but detectives are convinced that they've found Danielle.
The shirt that was on this young lady was the shirt in the pictures from the creek.
After weeks of chasing down hundreds of leads, it appears the search is finally over.
I was dreading the news of telling this family that we weren't going to be able to bring her home alive.
But even in death, has Danielle managed to leave detectives a clue about her killer's identity?
This wasn't just a coincidence.
She put herself in that situation because of her trust.
This body was found not even a stone throw away from his house.
On April 2nd, 2014, 22 days since her disappearance, it appears that the search for Danielle Locklear has come to a tragic end.
They reach out to my sister. The detectives come over and they say we found a body. And of course my sister, her concern was, is it her? Couldn't really tell her that it was, but the description fit Danielle.
The autopsy uncovers additional evidence suggesting that the body is the missing 15-year-old.
In her mouth was a sock.
The sock matched the sock that was found by Gina Papa, Danielle's aunt, on the path near the creek.
The autopsy also suggests that the sock is, for all practical purposes, the murder weapon.
The medical examiner was able to confirm that the cause of death appeared to be asphyxiation, that she was suffocated. There was no other real trauma to the body.
On April 4th, 2014, everyone's worst fears are officially confirmed.
We were able to positively confirm through mitochondrial DNA and dental records that this was Danielle.
She had been in that water, in that dark, nasty water, for a month. And that is crazy to me. How could someone take her and do this?
It was like dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do, where to go, what to say. It was very scary. Very scary.
With the search for Danielle finally over, detectives doubled down on their efforts to bring her killer to justice.
We need to figure out what happened. This family needs some closure.
To detectives, the location of Danielle's body leads them to one conclusion.
She was found 3.2 miles, about a 4 or 5 minute drive from jichael's house.
It was like a big red arrow pointing at him.
That boy knew that area like the back of his hand. This is his stomping grounds.
That afternoon, detectives descend upon jichael's home with a search warrant.
I remember pulling up to the house, and I seen a pump house right there next to the driveway, and there was some cinder blocks. And I was like, oh, man.
They looked to be the same type of cinder blocks that were tied around Danielle's body.
Yes?
We have a warrant to search your home, and we need to talk to jichael back at the station.
He came out. I said, young man, it's time to come with me. We need to go talk. You good with that? Yeah, I'm good with that.
He was not bothered or annoyed at all. He was as calm as anyone could ever be.
jichael maintains that calm demeanor even back at the station, where detectives waste no time interrogating him.
You want to tell us what happened that night?
I was at home that night, sir.
Okay, then you were at home. You want to tell us what happened after that?
I went to school the next day.
Okay. So you're going to stick with what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
He just basically keeps saying, I've had no involvement.
He really didn't have an explanation for why she was found, 3.2 miles from his house. He just maintained that he was not involved in a disappearance and not involved in her death in any way.
Why in the world would I put her down the street and around the corner?
jichael continues to be unfazed when detectives confront him with the evidence their search warrant has uncovered.
They went and searched his home, and they found the same cinder block and rope there. And they kind of held that to him like, what's up with this?
What if I tell you that we found the rope that she was tied up with?
And y'all found the rope?
At your house?
Shouldn't be at my house.
Why shouldn't it be?
Because it had nothing to do with it.
jichael is about as calm and cool as anyone I've ever seen on video.
Still, detectives keep the pressure on.
Your house has similar type cinder block, which is not good.
The investigator tries to break him, he's not successful. jichael just basically keeps saying, I've had no involvement, she's crazy, she's probably got a different boyfriend.
Unless y'all can prove it has something to do with it, which y'all are not going to be able to because it doesn't have anything to do with it, I'm going to live perfectly fine.
jichael is correct. At the end of the interview, detectives have little choice but to let him go.
We didn't have nothing to hold him on. We let him walk. Everything was voluntary at that point.
At this point, all of the evidence the detectives have is purely circumstantial.
Stonewalled by jichael, detectives decide to try a different approach. His best friend, Dominic Locke.
They wanted to chip away at the alibi of jichael.
Locke and jichael. Those two said they were together that night.
Dominic said that he spent the night over there and they went to school the next morning.
But when detectives reach out to Dominic, the investigation hits a snag.
He declined to be interviewed further about what had happened. He said he wanted to talk to a lawyer first.
Though Dominic isn't willing to speak with police, a couple days later, jichael has a change of heart.
2-3 days go by, I believe it was. Get a call, hey, jichael's on his way to the courthouse.
jichael decides to come in and give at least his version of what happened the night of March 11th.
I was just dumbfounded. I was like absolutely dumbfounded.
April 8th, 2014. News that 15-year-old Danielle Locklear's body was discovered in the South River has sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Hope Mills, North Carolina.
We had lots of prayer sessions to come just spiritually help uplift us and keep us, somewhat peaceful during that very, very tough time.
However, there's one person missing from the events. Her ex-boyfriend, 17-year-old jichael Malloy, who is on his way to the Hope Mills Police Department.
jichael was going to come in and give his version of what happened.
He had to have known, Everything was just coming down around him. He didn't have a choice.
Compared to his last interview, it's a very different jichael who sits down with detectives.
I'm sorry for lying to you at the beginning.
I understand. It's a tough spot. There's no doubt. No doubt in my mind.
Jichael starts off the interview by admitting that on the night that Danielle disappeared, he and Dominic had snuck out of his house.
They had climbed out a window so as not to be detected. So, of course, when we interviewed his mom, was he home? Yeah, he was home, but she didn't know he left.
According to jichael, once he'd snuck out of the house, he and Dominic drove to Danielle's.
They go to Danielle's house because jichael wants to talk with her.
What jichael says next takes detectives by surprise.
She had been off that night, like about her being pregnant and not being pregnant and stuff like that. They had been off and on for months.
Apparently, ever since they broke up, Danielle had told jichael that she thought she was pregnant.
jichael didn't know if this was just a ploy to get him back or if she was telling the truth.
He wanted to find out once and for all, was she pregnant?
I was like, all right, I'm ready to get this pregnancy thing done. Tell me now, and I just want to know.
According to jichael, he had bought a pregnancy test and had took it with him to Danielle's.
We drove over there, and I had took my wallet and I threw it against her window. And she came out.
Danielle tells her grandfather she's taking a book up the street to a friend's house.
But really, she sneaks off with jichael and his friend.
Got in the car, and we went to the creek.
Dominic stays at the top of the car, according to jichael.
jichael and Danielle start heading down the path, and they go down the path probably 70, 100 yards, something like that.
We sat down and talked for a while.
I need you to take this pregnancy test.
But according to jichael, that's when tempers flared.
She was cursing me out, still being mean to me. Yeah, I'm just trying to shove it off. And she was supposed to take a pregnancy test in front of me. The whole time it's like, take it and should prove it to me right now.
Based on what detectives know from the autopsy, there's a reason Danielle refused.
She was not pregnant at the time of her death. It was probably a cry for attention from Danielle to kind of stay in contact with him.
But did jichael know that?
I told her, no matter what, if you're pregnant or not, I'm gonna do what I gotta do. If this is my kid, DNA proven and everything. We're teenagers. And but I'm not gonna be with you. And that's when she snapped on me.
jichael alleges that she smacked him and started hitting him.
You're supposed to trust me.
I don't.
You're supposed to
Well, I don't trust you, so take this.
He said he grabbed her around the neck. And the next thing you knew, he blacked out.
We were fighting, and next thing I knew, she wasn't breathing.
jichael claims that he doesn't actually remember killing Danielle.
Danielle. Oh my God.
And he runs back up to the car, tells Dominic, look, she's not breathing.
I need your help. She's not breathing.
What do you mean she's not breathing?
I think she's dead. Come on!
jichael gets Dominic to go down to the river with him and help him move her body.
Oh my
Come
God.
on! We don't have time for this. Just grab her!
But was she dead? When detectives ask about the sock found stuffed inside Danielle's mouth, jichael makes a startling admission.
Who put it in her mouth?
Dominic did.
Okay, what did he put in her mouth?
He put in a sock.
Why would he do that?
Because she was making a noise. Yeah. Put a sock in there so nobody would hear it.
When was she making a noise?
Like, when I got up, she was making a noise. Like, she hadn't had a pulse or nothing. And he grabbed the sock and put it in there.
Where did he get the sock from?
Apparently, Danielle's boots and one sock came off as they were dragging her back to the car.
At that point, the two of them were able to get Danielle in the car.
Once Danielle was in the car, Jichael says he and Dominic drove back to his house, ditching Danielle's cell phone along the way.
It's on 95 somewhere.
Whereabouts on 95?
He says that near the Cape Fear River, he throws Danielle's cell phone out the window.
Then, back at his house, the friends came up with a quick plan to dispose of Danielle's body.
That's when I went and got the rope and the cinder block and tied her up.
Then they took her to the creek and dumped her in the creek. Like she was garbage.
But if Jichael expected to get away with Danielle's murder, he's sadly mistaken.
He's arrested, he's taken before the magistrate, and the charges at that time are second-degree murder.
Lord, please, so much.
Detectives arrest Jichael's friend, Dominic Locke, that same evening.
He did appear remorseful for what had happened and his involvement.
Questioned by detectives, Dominic essentially corroborates Jichael's story.
They were arguing, and I heard "shut up." That was like the loudest thing I heard.
He says a few moments later that Jichael comes running up the path.
He told me she's dead. And I asked him what he's talking about.
We had absolutely no evidence that Dominic had any idea that this was going to happen to Danielle.
However, Dominic does admit to helping Jichael get rid of the body.
He felt like he was in a corner with his best friend. Oh, loyalty make you do silly things when you're a teenager.
But while Dominic's account largely corroborates Jichael's, there is one difference.
They each blame one another for putting the sock in Danielle's mouth.
Dominic says, yeah, he asked me to shove it in her mouth.
I guess it wasn't in good enough and he pushed it down.
Other than that, their stories were remarkably consistent.
One of my friends called and said, did you see the news? Jichael confessed. And I'm like, oh my God, it's real. It's real.
However, Danielle's family isn't convinced by Jichael's claim that her death wasn't premeditated.
There's no way that anyone could ever make me believe that he was just coming over to just have a conversation with her. He lured her out. He tricked her. He knew exactly what he was going to be doing to her.
Police and prosecutors agree with the family.
He did all this because he thought that young girl was pregnant. That's the bottom line.
We felt like that we could have argued to the jury premeditation and deliberation.
But prosecutors never get a chance to make that case.
Rather than risk taking Jichael to trial, the prosecutors worked out a deal where Jichael pled guilty to second-degree murder.
We just wanted it all to be over with, just to save ourselves more heartache from seeing photos and going through the trial.
It's difficult enough for the family when Jichael addresses the court at his sentencing hearing in May of 2016.
Jichael stood up, he apologized, and I was just disgusted because I'm like, she trusted you and she loved him.
How could you stand up and say you're sorry when you sit there and you choke the life out of her?
I'm still angry, and I know that that's not the Christian thing, but I'm human.
The judge sentences Jichael to a minimum of 25 years in prison.
Dominic Locke eventually pled to accessory after the fact to murder and received a sentence of 6 to 8 years in jail.
While justice in the case has technically been served, it hardly makes up for what Danielle's family has lost.
Maybe one day I will learn forgiveness, but it's not anytime soon. He took somebody from us, somebody that was loved very deeply, that didn't deserve that.
She was this gorgeous girl, but she had personality, and she was goofy and creative and just full of life. Really never seen her without a smile on her face, and she was always laughing, and that's the way that I know she wants to be remembered.
Don't suppose to question God, that you wonder sometime, what's the reason? It's terrible. Never in a million years I thought that anything like this would ever happen to anybody in my family. Now she's gone.